out in the UK. So I see people are really getting ready for spring. Southern Cali beekeeper. Good to see you. We're starting to get ready for spring.
Hard not to think of spring here with weather like this. But it's January still, so I gotta readjust my attitude. It was raining here today.
We caught the rain all weekend.
It was nice here.
Hey, Sebastian.
Hey, Mark. Good to see you. So we just been, hanging out, and as far as the bees, I mean, I went in them this weekend when it wasn't raining just to throw patties on there, right? And I haven't been back in them at this point. Been a little bit cooler. I need to throw some liquid feed on them, so we got to get that going. But once I start the liquid feed, I kind of need to keep it on them, don't I? Keep them on them right until spring starts.
Until they don't take it.
Well, I don't.
That was James's philosophy with the pollen patty. Once you start the pollen patty, to keep it on them until the real stuff starts hitting.
Okay.
So that was
all that.
Well, the philosophy behind it is once they start eating that patty, they'll start possibly brooding. And then if you take that away from them, then they could start cannibalizing their brood, and maybe she shuts down again and kind of...
That makes sense. Cannibalizing is always a waste, right?
Right. But you know what? At this point, I'd rather them cannibalize them and cluster and not die as compared to covering the brood and getting chilled out. So, I don't know. I imagine they know what they're doing. They've been doing it for eons. So
they're pretty masterful at all that.
Hey, JB, Tritome, Randy, good to see you. Rex, good to see you. Todd, good to see you, Todd.
Hey, Todd.
I see you guys.
There you are.
Yeah, I just got here. What's going on?
We got to come up with a new... like when you watch or listen to the radio, they always have these monikers. Like we have this morning show, and I know the guy because I used to work at iHeartRadio, and he went by Tumbleweed. If I saw Tumbleweed in the grocery store, because I worked with him, I would know who he is, but nobody else would. So I've come up with a new one for Todd after this weekend.
Uh-oh.
No longer Taco Todd.
Oh.
It's Frat Boy Todd.
Frat Boy Todd.
Because every time, hey, we're having this frat get-together from college with the guys from the frat. And then all weekend Todd acts like a frat boy, partying all weekend.
Get the guys together. Get the old gang together, yeah.
And then hung over on Sunday.
It's pretty brutal this time. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to rearrange things.
Are you hanging up your shot glasses?
Yeah, I think the shot glasses are done.
Till next month, anyway.
Oh no! I think it. Yeah.
So James Knowles got his sugar bricks in the oven. He's up in Michigan. So I tried it in the oven. Just wetting the sugar and then putting it in the oven. I must have done it incorrectly because it got like almost gooey, like a cake, gooey, and it crusted on top and on the bottom when it cooled, but the center was still like malleable. So that was a Bob fail, one of many in beekeeping.
They take a while to dry. I know they take a while to dry when I make them. They take quite some time.
Usually when I do it, if I just wet it, put them in that bread pan and stack them up where the pressure is kind of smashing them together and everything, that they dry out before I need them when I just leave them in the kitchen. Yeah, James said I had it too hot. That's very possible. 12 days, nights 10. Okay, plus 10.
12C and 10C.
That's pretty warm, I think.
12C. Got that tab open somewhere.
Kappa Todd. There you go.
And now I put him.
He's a
12.
Tri-Todd. What fraternity were you in?
Kappa Sigma.
Tri-Todd, like the Tri-Lambs.
12C is almost 54 degrees.
If you know what I'm talking about, Tri-Lam, that's a movie reference. So if you know what the movie reference for Tri-Lam is, you got to put it in the comments. You have to.
Lambda.
Come on, you got to know what that's for. I can't say it because nobody's. Brad probably knows what it is. It's an 80s movie. I'll say that.
Yeah.
No, I remember what movie it was. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be an old guy.
Yeah, you do.
If you're less than 50 years old, you won't get it.
Let me see. Roy said, just put Hive Alive on yesterday. Better than destroying the wife's kitchen cooking.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, I've got to figure something out because I'm going to have to figure a way to clean these these floors that I've got in there. They're like country wood floors, right? Of all the honey drippings and wax drippings and all the other drippings that I've put in the floor. It'll probably be a sandable experience before long. Coming up, sandpaper. Clay says he just puts his around the wood stove and they're done by morning.
Oh, wow.
Southern Cali beekeeper. Let me put this up. Says, what race of bees do you guys have in your hives? I'd like to raise Caucasians in Southern Cal. Italians are just too much for me. I've got, I will say, mine are primarily a Carney Italian mix because I've had both of them in the yard, so I'm pretty sure my queens have mated with them. So,
Carnies are a good option.
Similar what we run here, heavier on the Carniolan, though they winter good for us because they don't eat themselves to death. They winter in
I'm glad you got that. I shipped them out right away.
The only issue, it's not a problem, but the only issue with Caucasians are the propolis building. I mean, if you don't mind that, then it's no big deal. But boy, they can really shovel it in there.
Mine will glue it down so hard that my top frame, the top bar, will actually pop out of the frame before it'll release.
Yeah.
Then I end up pulling the whole thing out and hammering it back together, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But if you're not doing, if you're not doing almond pollination, then you could get away with anything. But if you're doing almond pollination, you need to do Italians because they build up faster. You know, Carnies are going to take their time in the spring before they get going, but you know, before that, the Italians are already, going like gangbusters. So that's a consideration. So it just depends on what you want to do with them.
Well, what I want to do with mine is have them live. If I can have them, I don't care what they are at this point, just live. If they'll do that, I can do a lot with live bees. I can't do jack.
That's a really good start.
With these dead bees that I get, every year. So, yeah, that's the other thing. William says here, I like the propolis, kind of annoying on the fingers, but I think it's better for the bees. Let me see. Says there's Italians and Carnies are going gangbusters right now. Southern Cal, what's the weather like down there?
He better put his arm floaties on because Thursday, Friday, it's going to be flooding again.
Really?
Yeah, that's what they're saying right now.
Stuff falling behind me here.
I don't know. Hey, Brad, so DC says something. I think he's saying Russians build up faster than Italians, but I'm not so certain on that.
Russians build up faster
I
than
wouldn't know.
Italians?
I
Sorry.
don't know the answer to that. But I don't know hardly. Well, I don't know a lot of guys that have Russian bees for almond pollination. They're almost all Italians. At least everybody that I've ever talked to.
So I don't know if the people here know about my epic screw up on Amazon. I'm going to take the blame for it. However, I really don't think it's my fault. But for some reason, my Amazon was showing that it was live. However, Amazon was not showing swarm lure and marking pins on it. But I got that straightened out. So it is on. They're both on there now. So Todd is located in Clovis, California, as per his tag underneath his name right there.
Almost geographically in the center of California, north, south, east, and west.
So if you could envision hell as a territory, Todd is right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle of it. Yep.
I can't say. California, the time that I was out there was nice. You know what I mean? So, of course, I got to leave and go back home. So that made it even better. But, oh, hey, thanks, Brad. I appreciate that.
Hey, buddy.
40
You're welcome.
Canadian. Thank you. Oh, is that? It looks like the middle finger.
Yeah,
you
it
just-
looks like he's giving him the middle finger
That'll
there.
get you a coffee. What's that? Like this?
I thought it was
No.
Filipino pesos.
It
It
looked
looked like you froze, and it looked like you
Yeah.
had the middle finger up with you. I was like, oh, thanks.
Yeah. Here, take my money.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate what you do. Appreciate using your time and keeping us entertained and giving us some kind of a platform to sit here and talk about bees. You know, we talk about all kinds of stuff and visit about all kinds of things and have a good time. But you know, bees is what really brings us together. So that's we do
That's
talk
true.
about that a lot. So it's really helpful
The-
to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people.
Well, you
to
know,
learn about
and-
what other people do with their bees.
the
You know,
beauty of
really
this platform, in my opinion, and not the platform of YouTube, obviously we all watch YouTube, but this specific, how we do it, the format is, it doesn't matter if you've got 1 hive, 4 hives, you know, if Ian's been on here 1,500 hives, Doug comes, he's got 300 plus hives, you've got 200 hives, right? So it doesn't matter. We're just talking about bees and what works for us, and also what doesn't work for us. And
Yeah.
when we fail at something, we share that we failed about it. You know, it's not all rainbows and unicorns all the time, unless James is on. Then we do have our own resident unicorn on the channel. So, and you know, we talk about magic trees and cream and honey, and I'm passionate about equipment, even though I can't afford that much of it. But you know, I like to look at it. I guess if this was cars, I'd be considered a gearhead, right?
Yeah.
With bee equipment. So, so we really do appreciate coming together and talking about things. And not always is it fun, you know. Hey, I shared everything with about the death of my mom and everything that was going on. So you guys get to see a little bit more of us than get a little more insight than sometimes we care to put out. Sometimes, but I do appreciate it. The Jay, well, I've got both of them, buddy. So I appreciate it if you get them from me. But if not, just get it from Amazon. Either way, actually, I do like selling through Amazon as compared to my own website. My own website has an advantage to where I don't pay Amazon a fee. However, the disadvantage is I can pay for the shipping part right through Amazon. And when I pay for my website, I actually have to pay that prior to the funds coming in So it's kind of like I'm floating that money and then getting reimbursed, floating money. So either way, it's fine. But Amazon's a good place. I like it when it works when it's working for me. But let's see. Let's throw up the link real quick and see what happens.
See who jumps in.
I think tomorrow I'm going to go out there and take my red headlamp this time and have a better look at some of those colonies. It's particularly the ones that had the tablets on them.
See what they look like. I want to see how much tablet is gone out of there.
Yeah. I didn't really show that, so I'll try to make sure I get a good handle on that. I'm thrilled because again, my biggest reason I wanted to test that was stick an Appy tablet in there early November when I put them in the building, and then leave it in there for 5 months. Is it going to kill my bees? Right?
Well, it's passed that first litmus test so far.
They're sequestered, so we know it didn't kill the bees. Not yet, anyway. But I've got to check the feed stores, because if the colonies we were just talking about, Carniolans or winter in smaller clusters, they don't eat themselves to death. Well, if these tablets are nutritious enough for the colony that it's encouraging them to brood up, they might be eating too much, and so I've got to just check that. I've got enough other dead colonies that I should be able to put some honey frames in there if it's dire.
So, I watched your video and I saw you checked 4 colonies, 2 that had tablets and 2 that didn't. Right. They were all from the same stock of bees from the same bee yard.
Right.
So what I couldn't tell is because it was dark, I couldn't really tell the differences that you were seeing. Would you care to explain that? What you just your initial look without an in-depth into it? Thank you, Clay. I appreciate that.
Well,
so much.
Honestly, I couldn't see much more than you did, and if you look at the video, you can tell I didn't even pull back the foamy on that one. I just see a little mound of dark moving stuff. So that's kind of why I want to go back in there, do that again, get the headlamp. I don't know why I just completely forgot to bring my headlamp along to illuminate the boxes because it's not very bright in there.
If it's like me, I get out there and I start doing things, and then I see something or I decide I'm going to do something, and then I just whip the phone out and it becomes a live or a video. Totally unscripted.
Sometimes it is. I had been thinking I'd better go out and do that soon or sometime anyway, and then I just forgot to take that headlamp, but I didn't realize. I looked around in there for a headlamp and there wasn't one, so I just did it the way it was, and wasn't the greatest.
Well, Randy had a good. Randy
Randy. I'm going to be checking on the tablet, see if it's gone or not.
Randy had a pretty good experience with his as well. So
good.
I have too. So far, so good.
And that's very similar to what I've had, Brian. I've had some that were practically gone and some that were still hanging in there.
They just know when they need it, I guess.
Charlie.
Hey.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey.
How you doing tonight?
All right. It's cold today. Kind of it wasn't raining, but it had that dampish air in it and windy. So that was kind of cold working today.
We were just hanging out a bit and decided we would go live for a few minutes. And we had 50 of our favorite friends hanging out with us. So it's always a good thing. Hey, David, good to see you. Charlie.
50 of our favorite friends. I thought Charlie.
So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I started, and it's interesting because I'm starting to see photos pop up in my Google, right in my what do you call it, the OneDrive, where it gives you like the update stuff from last year. By this time last year, I already had a double screen bottom board on a colony with queen cells pulled up over the top of them to see if they would hatch out and go. Now, that colony did not end up being able to requeen itself, so I ended up grafting a queen and making a queen for it. But yeah, that's why I originally started doing the YouTube, was more so, okay, what did I do 1 year ago today, right? What was happening a year ago?
I do that a lot. Look back at pictures and videos, and I don't take nearly as many pictures anymore because I'm doing videos, but I find it very, very helpful to look back at that. And, you know, if I'm getting impatient with the flow, or, you know, if I'm thinking, oh, I'm too late pulling my honey, you know, and I can look back and think, oh, okay, it's not that late. It just seems late. It's not so bad. It's really helpful. Except 2022. 2022 was like I lived on a different planet that year. It was just totally screwed up.
Well, what I can say is that everything seems kind of normal for me at this point.
Hey, Norm, thank you very much, Norm.
The same amount of bees, right? The same amount of colonies, everything. So not much has really changed as far as my ending outcome there. And
I use a thing called Color Notes. It's a little free app that was on my phone. You can either make check boxes like I do, like for a grocery list, or you just do text. And I've been making a sort of like a diary in the bee yard, and I'll put in there the date, time,
right,
or the date, the weather, and what I did in the yard as far as an overview, not as far as individualized hives. And I went back to that where I looked at my mite treatments. What did I do? I found I didn't remember it, but I actually did Formic Pro first last year and then Aprovar. This year I switched it around, and I could tell a difference in the mite drops after oxalic acid in the wintertime. It was less stuff like that, you know.
Did you guys watch that video that Ian put out today? Well, he put on Facebook, the Randy Oliver talking to the guy in Australia.
I didn't see it.
I just watched the beginning of that. I need to.
Talking about what, Todd?
Basically, the plight of the Australian beekeepers, you know, with the mites and stuff. So they were going over really all of that. It was interesting. It was about an hour and 45 minutes, I think, but I was able to view most of it during lunch, and then I kind of snuck away for a little bit to finish the rest of it out. So it was a good video.
So, you know, with Australia and their mites, obviously it's brand new for them, right? Like they just got it in 2023, right? That they were saying that they just got them. That they threw in the towel. Didn't they come out originally where they had to like burn the colonies in the apiary or something if they had mites?
Yeah, that guy was saying somewhere towards Queensland, they burned every colony they could find. You know, they torched them. And Randy was kind of talking to him, saying, you know, you're going to go through these things. But one thing that he did point out, he said, if I were you, I'd find the guy that's driving the new pickup truck and not saying much. That's the guy that's got, you know, he knows what he's doing. Randy says, I wouldn't want to talk to anybody that's complaining about the mites, because that tells me that they're failing on whatever they're doing. So, I mean, he does have a point there. And, you know, what was another thing that's interesting is Randy talks to beekeepers in Iran. And Iran, those beekeepers up there are still using Coumaphos and fluvalinate.
We can still get it.
Yeah, but they don't even use Amitraz yet because they don't have it. They haven't even got to it yet. And part of Randy's argument was that in the U.S. and a lot of places, and Brad's experienced this, is they're becoming resistant to Amitraz, and so he was telling the guy in Australia about that as well.
Well, a friend of mine was telling me, I think it was Kumafos. Isn't that an animal treatment, also cattle treatment thing?
No, Amitraz is, Bovatraz.
Yeah,
it's
Bovatraz.
the same thing, right? Or
Yeah.
Tactic,
Yeah,
Maybe it was Tactic.
yeah, that's
Which is-
Amitraz.
Amitraz, 12.5% Amitraz.
Yeah, it's like a flea treatment for dogs. They'll either dip a cow in that stuff, or they'll splash it on its back, and then it spreads out.
I don't know. There was a problem way back in his early days where somebody complained to whatever manufacturer it was. I'll say Bayer or somebody, whoever made the product. They said, fine, we'll take it out of the United States. And because of all that kind of different stuff. And I don't know what the history is behind it, but
Todd, this is No Mite
Yeah,
Monday.
I know. I just saw that.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get no mites. We can do the half full version tonight.
And
In pursuit of no lights.
I'll end with, that was part of the conversation that Randy was talking about, was mite resistant bees, coming from good stocks of queens. And he was talking about what he's setting up in Northern California on, I think it was 20,000 acre ranch. So,
Right.
he's on to something, and hopefully, everything works out. But yeah, I don't want to keep talking about mites.
Apamaze are out of my scope of purview there, because I've never bought one. I don't ever plan to buy one. If I do get one, it's because they sent me one. That'll be the only way that I get one at this point, because they're just too damn expensive for what I'm trying to do.
Ooh, look what Brian just said. That's that's interesting.
Creamed honey straws.
That is interesting.
I don't think you can do that.
Honey straws.
Yeah, I don't know how you can get the creamed honey in there.
Well, you could. I mean, you just have to bite it and squeeze it.
No, I'll tell you what you could do. Remember them things that were they're about an inch in diameter, and you push the plunger up? You could make popsicle creamed honey sticks.
Brian, the link is right up there. If you click the magic link, we can talk about whatever you want to bring up.
Well, look at that. He's got Bee Venom Cosmetic Care. See, he's creating a market right now as we speak. He's
No, hey, trust me, there is a whole line of
No, I know that,
venom
but I mean,
cosmetic.
he's trying to create his own market, his own little segment. Although those segments are out, but I mean the segment connected to him, because he's the one talking.
Just think, in Colorado, you could lace rolling papers with bee venom, and that way they'll think it's extra special herb because their lips are getting numb as they're smoking it. I could feel this, man. This is so potent. It's numbing, it's numbing my lips.
I don't know about you
I've had
guys.
an anaphylactic reaction to weed before.
I know, right? I do want one of those, but man, I would have to get one sent to me as well. The bee venom collectors, because they're like.
Oh, I thought you were talking about a bee venom coated joint.
I just want to do it to try it.
What's funny is all of a sudden on my Facebook feed, one of the commercials that I scroll
That is
past,
correct.
one of the things I scroll past is bee venom therapy that's recommended by orthopedic surgeons for knee pain and stuff like that, joint pain.
Let me clarify this statement. I didn't not want them. I did not want to pay for them. That was the difference, because I started doing the math that if I got 45 of them, it was going to cost me $2,500, right? So that's when it was like, maybe we can make this work like everybody else does. All right, let's see what Randy says here. Bob, I have not had a mite drop on my boards for 3 months after OA treatments. I put the tablets on in August. So that is a good sign. Nobody should be as arthritis free as I should be with my venom therapy.
Hey, I got my first shot of venom therapy on Friday.
I've got, man,
Right in the damn tricep.
all on the side of my head here. I evidently got stung right here in my collarbone. I got right there. There was a spot where I got stung, and I had a full suit on. So
What kind of suit?
that's the same suit that Ian uses. Now, Ian uses the jacket, but I had the full suit on. That Saracel one.
Well, they found a way in.
All right, so let's see. Since people are watching on different channels tonight, pop this up there for Randy. I wish, yeah, Danae says it only works when it's zipped up. That's accurate. That is accurate. So, so this right here, the supplement that we use, I was going to say protein supplement, but the supplement that we use has thymol in it, enough to where it makes a difference on some critters that can be in the box. We'll say that. And so you're saying with the tablet, it was 72 hours after. That's about right. I checked mine after a week is when I first checked it, right? And my thing is, obviously they reproduce inside the comb, right? So here we are on Monday again, doing the M&Ms. So on Monday, well, they reproduce in the comb and then they come out, but that supplement stays on the colony for such a long time that it reduces in the hive the amount that can go back in to reproduce. And then as they're hatching out, it's my opinion that they're getting wiped out along and along. And that has been the case with everybody that has responded to me about it, that actually has given it a fair shot and left it on there, that's what they've been experiencing as well. So let me see. Yep. Now, is that the same thing as far as my Apame experience, or is that what you're saying? They're too expensive as well. Here's a question. How many Apames do you own?
Hey.
That should be like that's how you know somebody's financial status, right? When you go in their yard and it's just an Apame colony, you're like,
Apame index. What is
that
your
Apame
Apame index?
That's great.
Yeah.
He's got 0, right?
That determines on what side of the B track.
I bet you it's going to look like binary in the chat: 0 1 1 0 0 0 0 1 0 0. Right?
Yeah.
It's going to be something like that.
Well, my Apame index is 0 currently.
And then Bruce jumps in there, 13.
Hey, Jeremy, what's up, Jeremy?
You know what? To be honest, I would love to try them because I use these poly nukes here, and I've used the 10 frame poly hives too, and so I've got some experience on how those perform and how the bees do in them, and they do really well. So I would love to try some Apames against the wooden boxes.
Hashtag not sponsored. That's
go.
right.
So if Apame is listening, my address can be found in my channel.
Right.
Hey, we were going to turn this into an infomercial, right?
Well, hey, even The Chinese knockoff Apimays that were really cheap when they first started knocking them off, they've kind of creeped right up there, right next to a little bit still cheaper, but right up there in the price bracket, you know. So it's like,
I've been watching, they call it about condensing hive, which is, no upper entrance, no upper ventilation, and about where you like my licensed 6-frame, it doesn't have any of that. It's insulated, it creates the heat dome, and where the moisture actually condenses on the sides of the boxes instead of from the top. So, I mean, I had some friends of mine in my club where they put insulation, I'll say 2-inch styrofoam insulation on top of it. And I'm wondering, I had one of my nukes had quite a bit of moisture, and I use, I have my blocks and where it has the upper ventilation notch and everything in there, which normally keeps it dry. So I've been actually looking into that here, and I'm like, should we be insulating our hives and stuff?
Royce does
Brad
something
probably
here.
has more, he's got the insulated hive. I know he puts the stuff inside the barn up there, but I mean, what about the folks like Doug? Doug puts them together and puts that wrap around there and stuff.
Yeah. See, I don't think the same rules apply, Charlie. There's more variables than just simply ambient temperature. For example, we could sit at. So I'm starting to cough here. We could sit at 0F here, and it would be one situation. Oh, excuse me. One situation, whereas say somebody on the near the coast like yourself, you could sit at 0F, and boy, you'd have a very different humidity situation for one, and I think that would change the dynamics in the hive as far as, are you ventilating or not, right? If you're ventilating at 0F and high humidity, maybe that's a bad thing because you're drawing that air in to come up, and maybe that's not what you want. Whereas here, you're drawing in really dry air, and that helps to actually
like you were talking about
that humidity, right?
You were talking about like your roadways up there, that it gets, I guess that it gets so cold that the ice doesn't melt, but it evaporates.
Yeah, it sublimates. It goes from a solid to a gas. It just evaporates. Yeah, because it's extremely dry here. So I think and that's why I've been so intrigued with talking to you guys down in southern climates and Todd out west for sure, that deal with different climatic situations.
Well, I know the keeper, like you say, some of my guys put insulation on just the top of the hive, and where Nancy is, I mean, there's a club that we both belong to where they talk about that, and I've never done it, and one guy in my club does do that. I said, what about wrapping the outer hive with, let's say 1-inch styrofoam, right? And
I did a video on that last year. Last spring.
Flyback split.
The same as the OTS, right?
No, it's different. I'm trying to remember. I remember it worked out good. Just can't remember exactly. It's something that what's his name? West Texas. Gus.
I've heard
did.
that.
Gus
Oh,
has done
okay.
that. Yeah.
Gus Mitchell.
Gus Mitchell, yeah.
I've heard that, but I don't really know. It's not a technique that I employ.
Yeah.
Maybe I should.
What it was. I can't even think about it now.
I have not used it myself.
I tried it though; it worked.
So people were asking about how what the Apamay with the length of time that it lasts. Well, I'm not saying it doesn't work, right? What I'm saying is it really depends on what your apiary goal is, I think, when it comes to like apame, right? So when I say apiary goal, if you're going to have a few colonies, or if you're independently wealthy and you can just afford to have a bunch of them, then it might be a good thing. However, if you see Brad's apiary behind him, he's not putting apames on pallets, and then having to buy the boxes to go on top of the apames that so they don't slide and all that stuff or lock down. So it's a big investment. For me, I probably would never. I hate to say never, but I would have to win the Powerball before I could do something like that to be able to totally retool my whole apiary.
Yeah, with brood chambers and honey supers, I run 500 to 600 boxes, right? And I'm a very small operation, and so if I'm going to change all of that, boy, that's a monumental task. You do the math on what just a single apame box would cost.
Well, I think if you get the one with the supers and everything, it's like $700 or $800, right? For the full thing with supers and everything.
If you you could have a real compelling bottom line to do that. I actually was talking to Stan Gore the other day, and he's running, I don't know, 100 or so colonies, I believe. 100% apame. He totally loves them, and no secret, Stan's got some resources, so he can make a purchase like that. But he just loves them. He's in Texas, right? So he's got that heat to deal with. AJW. So I mean, no, nothing negative about the product, even though I haven't used it. If it's an insulated hive, I'm all for it. That's a good thing for the bees. They like that insulation, to be insulated from whatever the outside temperature is doing, whether it's hot or cold.
Oh.
Someone's in trouble.
I get that every night, man. I think it's the fire department. They every day and every night they like run.
Bob, bring up Bob Shipley's. Now, see, this is what everybody's missing here tonight, is that you can have an apame, but if you look at them, they have a ventilated top because they got vent holes up there. So the air is coming in, going out, and out the top. So what Bob's doing here, he's have a condensing hive, which is he's got 2.5 inch insulation on the top and none on the sides. Works great for me in Oregon. Okay, I'm finding on that today. But what I'm getting at is, I was watching this program and he had Mr. Heschbach. He's been writing things about. You can drop it, Bob, if you want. And then there's Randy Oliver's talked about it, and anyway, this lady come up with this system. Of course, she's selling it. It's foam, and you're supposed to have an R32 value on the roof and R10 value on the side, so the sides will get cooler and condense the moisture on the side, and it creates a dome of heat, doesn't let it go out, and the heat banks down inside the cavity, and the bees don't have to work to create a lot of heat, so they don't eat as much. I mean, any polystyrene hive, or maybe even the apame, they don't eat as much honey through the winter time. But it's just, I'm going to try that up. As far as, I think I'm going to put the thing on the top. But on the other hand, I will have to say, like Brad says, it kind of depends on where you live at in the country. If you're down in Bob's, where he doesn't really have a tremendous winter, you don't really need any of that. Mm-hmm. Where I'll say on the border, maybe Virginia.
Where like an apame would help us or something better is more in the summertime.
Yeah.
To keep the sun from permeating into the colony as much.
Well, now
We talked
Yeah,
about that something the other day, Bob. Remember, we're comparing notes between your climate and mine, and we were talking about the fact that a 10 or 20 degree shift in temperature when you're below freezing really doesn't affect the bees very much. But if you're just in that range where the bees cluster or break cluster and you get a 10 or 20 degree shift in temperature, that's I think where you start to get stress on the bees, because they don't, in my kind of my rough observations, they don't really react to that change very quickly. And I think that's where they can kind of get stressed during the winter. So an insulated hive like that then could at the very least, take that solar gain off of the hive. Solar gain, I think, is absolutely not what you want, because it's going to give you that 24-hour shift of temperature. And if it's in that range where they're going to cluster and break cluster, then I think that's a bad thing. That's my uneducated opinion, but that's just my observations.
So Hope says, fly away. Take queen with one frame of bees with foundation frames to a brood box. Move mother hive away and let foragers go back. Mother hive makes multiple queen cells. You harvest them and then reunite all the bees back together.
Yep.
So is that something where you would have to then cage the queen when you reunite them back together? Or are they just ready to go right back with her?
Go back.
Gus Mitchell down there in Tennessee or Arkansas, he's got 2 or 3 videos on that. He uses that quite a lot.
Gus Mitchell is in, I think, Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, well, he's across the river from Memphis. He's actually in Arkansas, but he's right. It's right at Memphis, Bob.
Okay.
It was reference to Charlie's conversation on the Apamays. I've got 4 of them just playing with them, and every one I've got, it's 34 degrees here right now, and humidity is 97%. But every Apamay I got, you talk about that top ventilation, Charlie. Every one of them's got it propolized off.
Yeah, well, see, that was another thing that in this lady's, it was in her little talk, it is that she has had people come back. She took her idea. She went to Minnesota, what's her name? The lady that talked about propolis down there at the conference.
Marla Spivak.
Marla Spivak.
I went to her. This is pre-COVID. They got a grant and all this kind of stuff, and this is her idea of it. And I think it was just, kind of the newest thing about they call it condensing hive. When I first heard it, I thought they were condensing the population down into one box instead of the moisture. And she talked about that. The Apamay people reported that they were, covering that hole up and that kind of thing. And so it just, it's just, I just found it interesting that, that, this, all these different things. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm thinking about all this insulation, and then I go out to my bees over the weekend. Now, Friday, we had 70-degree weather here. The next day, we had 55-degree weather. And I went through 3 or 4 nukes, except for my little nuke. The rest of them were in great shape. They had plenty of food, plenty of bees in there. I went through 2 10-framers, and they had plenty of bees, and I could see from looking on an angle they had plenty of food still. But I think of what am I doing? Number one, I'm treating, and number 2, I'm using Apis Biologic for their food, which is definitely, I've seen a definite improvement with that. And of course the treating is a major positive point. So do you need all these other things? So I'm like, when you got 30 hives, it's like, I'm not going out and buying Apamay. I have one license foam or styrofoam, however, polystyrene. Problem with that is, all right, I'm using a hot iron ProVap, and I can melt that thing in a heartbeat, and Apamaze just the same way. Robbie down there came up with this steel pan and put that underneath that Apamaze, and then the price of that thing was too expensive, so now that's why he doesn't sell them anymore. I mean, you got to be
Thanks,
able
Bob.
yeah, you got to be able to who's Timmy? Is it the cat?
Coffee
Tim
shop.
Hortons.
Timmy's coffee.
And so you got the downside of that, you melt them, and I had to make up a special bracket for that license height in order to treat it without damaging it, because I've already damaged a little bit of the little slider thing on there. And I still like my wooden boxes. I'll put it to you that way.
I've got a ProVap, Charlie, and it's that ProVap, he's got them little, I don't know, they're nylon or whatever that artificial stuff is, to keep from burning the hives, and it doesn't bother them at all to treat the Apamaze, what little I've got. But I use the Apamaze primarily I've got seven frames, and I split them, use them for queen.
Now, it's like ripple effect talking about using tire paper. When it comes to insulating power, it has zero insulation. The only thing you have is solar gain. And I'm not sure whether that's, I think Brad just mentioned, was whether you want that or not.
Well, everybody thinks they want it. I think it's bad, but I'm kind of a voice in the wilderness on that. So, I'm just kind of waiting for more data and more experience to come down the pipe and see if people start to kind of say, you know what, I think that is, I think it is bad, or say you're wrong and it's good. I'll give tar paper one more little check mark on wrapping. Is generally it's one sheet of tar paper, and if you're running a double or more, then it's going to help to insulate those cracks from the breeze in the winter. So, but other than that, you're right. Not a lot of R value there.
I have a question that I can't get over in my head about these polystyrene hives. Well, yeah, we know that they keep the bees warmer in the wintertime, and that they're good for the summertime too, where the bees don't have to work as hard to keep them cool. But think about this. Do they ever go broodless? Because they're not going to work themselves to death to get it cold in there for the queen to stop.
No.
So
No, they won't. No, they don't. That's something that happens to them, not something that they do.
So they can go
Right.
broodless in there.
Well, if it's cold enough.
But they're generating heat, which is bouncing back on them from the ceiling.
Mm-hmm. Now, that was something that this gal talked about. And, I had Mr. Hirschbeck Zoom into my club meeting. It was very informative. It was better. His presentation was better than the one he has on YouTube with Peck, Dr. Peck. It was more informative. I don't think he used his PowerPoint on Peck, and visuals for me are much better. But one thing that this other girl talked about, and she's got this called the hive wrap or something like that, is it natural for a hive of bees to cluster? If it's in a tree where they're well insulated, do they keep warm enough to where they're throughout the hive all the time?
Insulation doesn't keep things warm.
That's right. It prevents
Insulation
the heat,
decouples thermal transfer.
right?
So something is going to keep those bees warm in there. And that something is the bees themselves.
Right.
right? So, and a DC was saying, well, it's thermal gain is, or solar gain is natural. Yeah, it is, but most tree cavities are pretty thick walled and have very little
Yeah.
solar gain effect on the bees. They're very high R value. So
Right. Well,
that's
the R value, it's the resistance
R is
of
resistance to heat transfer.
heat transfer.
That's right. There is another metric that they use that is kind of more accurate, but that's what
Now,
we've been using for.
what she was
a long
selling
time.
was a product that the Styrofoam insulation board, I think at the top board was 40 some R value, but it was vacuum sealed. Was a Styrofoam wrapping around it, and because it will not let any heat pass through because of there's no air in there. But it was just too much money. It's like $88 for one hive. It was like, no way.
It's really easy to overthink it. Really easy to overthink. Because I keep talking about burying beehives in snowdrifts. Well, that's not high tech. That's a pile of snow, right? So I don't think there's a necessity to get too scientific with the insulation material and properties and all that kind of stuff. Even the value, even the R value, so much. It's to have that moderating decouple there, so that the changing temperature outside doesn't have as big an effect on the inside of that hive. It's not keeping it warm. The bees keep it warm, and they don't actually keep it very warm. They keep the cluster warm.
Right. I mean, there's like the gasket. I can't pronounce his first name, but there's Tartup, his last name. He's up there in the Yukon. And he put all them,
Etienne.
he put all those sensors in, and then he had that graph of showing where the cluster was, and then the air area around it with inside the box and stuff.
Yeah.
And all that.
So, not to interrupt, but I'm going to interrupt for a second. Ripple Effect. I don't know whose channel he's watching on, but the swarm lure is called Swarm Rustler. This kind of word, but that's I make this swarm lure, so that's if you see that, depending where you're located. Well, you can, if you're in the States, you can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on my website, which is on the header of my YouTube channel. You can, if you're in Canada, you can buy it from Dancing Bee. You can buy it from the Bee Supply, Foxhound, lots of different places.
All right. Russell says he's got those 3 tops I'm talking about. They seem to be working okay. So from that comment, I'm thinking, like Bob's talking about the heat transfer, or for like hot sun. Well, Jeremy out there in Texas, he used to put Styrofoam insulation on his hive top. And is JW all right?
Yeah, I'm on my phone.
Okay.
Fall asleep, or
I was worried there.
Make sure you didn't have a Tiny Tim moment there. Just we was about to call 911.
I'm on my phone here for a second. Pardon me.
bring up Morris Homestead's question
Yeah,
there.
I was
It's
Yeah,
a
you
little
got
bit of a sidebar, but let's go into that a little bit. What temperature is it okay to open my hives and put fondant on? You can open your hives at fairly low temperatures. This is my opinion again, if it's not windy, and don't be pulling frames out either, because don't forget, the principle is that the bees are clustered, and the outside of that cluster is the insulation for that cluster. So if you're not opening that hive and highly ventilating it, meaning it's a super windy day, you're fine. They're completely fine the way they are. You can open that lid and you can do what you need to do. Put your patties on or fondants or whatever you've got to do in there. Close the lid. keep it under a minute, I would say. You can probably do that under 30 seconds if you get everything organized. So that would be my advice.
Mhm.
So Morris, where are you located at?
Yep. And if you're going to the North Carolina State Conference, they can pick it up from Mark over at the North Carolina show.
Right on.
M&J was in his at 36 degrees.
Western New York, Charlie.
Western New York.
I was in mine. They weren't happy last time. Well, actually, I lit my smoker and
You're
went back.
never happy.
Yeah.
My
You
freezer
lit your
never-
smoker.
I did light my smoker. I have a short to
Did you?
prove it.
Smoke
Did you
those
phone a
bad
friend?
boys.
Is that
Yeah, I had to phone a friend and use one of my lifelines to
get the smoker lit?
did get it lit, and but with that being said, they were nicer. But were they nicer because I used the smoke, or were they nicer because it was 77 degrees out when I was up? So I got to wait for a cold day, then use it. Oh no, an overcast / rainy day,
Yeah. There you
and
go.
then use it.
And make sure you zip up your suit.
Yeah,
That over / rainy is almost every day here in southeastern Illinois.
Russell opened his at 45F today.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm doing my spring assessments at about that temperature. Like quite often, it's less than 50F when I'm doing my spring assessments, and that's opening up. Sometimes that's opening up, getting a couple of our strips in there, patties on, doing some cleanup. So, like I say, if it's not a windy day, don't worry about that too much. I mean, you got to get the job done, but don't stress about it.
Just being intentional, right? Get in,
Yep.
do what you're gonna do, and get out.
Get into your job. Like, you don't need to be in a big rush and a big panic and a big hurry. Just be efficient. Have everything ready before you start cracking that lid open, and just get in there, do your thing, and get out.
We found something interesting out about Todd yesterday. Outside of the fact that he likes to drink with his frat brothers, that of me, Brad, and Todd is actually the oldest of the three of us. We did not know that.
Yes,
I
he
would have
is.
assumed it was Brad.
Well, thanks, man.
Well, I mean, you assumed it was you too, so don't
I did.
don't push me in front of the bus just yet.
Somehow I thought we were similar age, and I thought I was a little bit older, but Todd
I
definitely.
think I'm a
years
year
younger.
older, right?
Look, Southern Cali. Did you
Yeah.
go look that up? Because I asked that question a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
think
was
he
looking
went
at
and
that
watched the
thinking-
whole movie and came back.
You
Somebody's
mentioned
watching
that
the
about
replay.
an hour and 2 minutes ago.
Charlie, what's the over and under on what, 60? 60? You're over 60, right?
It's barely moved, Charlie.
You boys are making me
froze.
feel real bad.
Bob, or were you having an earthquake, or were you nodding?
Yeah.
feel bad,
He looked
Jay,
like
don't you?
a Charlie bobblehead. Well, I know it's hard to support that thing after Nabu with your newfound popularity.
Russell says I'm the
Poor
oldest.
Charlie.
You mean the whole group here, or just
Of the
he said
the
all
three
three.
in the
Of the top row
row
here.
there.
I was gonna say, I don't think you boys want to try to compete with me age-wise. So
I think
I
JW's
know
got
how
us
old you
all.
are. You said it the other night.
Yeah.
oh, did I tell you the other night? I'd forgotten since then. That's
Yeah,
2 nights ago.
that's the thing. I can't
I
remember.
know he's at least 8 decades old,
You betcha.
which impresses me that you still do all of your beekeeping by hand. And this
Look at all the
young
bees in the back.
whippersnapper Charlie next to you had to run out and buy a hive lifter.
Yeah.
I mean, he was quick about it too. It only took him like 4 years to decide.
2 years.
2 years.
Charlie,
Come
that's
on, Bob.
2
Who's
years
only
of
2
live streams that we've been talking about it. How long?
I've only been live streaming. I've only been live streaming for a little over a year.
Well, the 10th of March will be 2 years for our Tuesday night stream.
I've watched these all since, but just about ever since you started. But I
Well, I'll go ahead and apologize now for that.
Yeah, sorry for that.
it took me a couple years to build up enough nerve to try you out, see how you like.
Oh, I like to think that I'm the same on the stream as I am not on the stream. I mean, I know some people that haven't met me probably might find that little. Is he really that dumb in person? I guarantee. I guarantee it doesn't change between live streams.
Yeah.
Yes, you can't be that dumb in person.
Look at Danae.
How many? Yeah, I was
Like
just
10,000 years of beekeeping experience with this chat.
How many years does everybody have?
Oh, I don't know.
This will be my
started.
This will be year 6 for me.
I'm the baby when it comes to how many years? 6 years, Bob?
6, yeah. This will be 10 for you,
okay,
right?
so this
I started
is,
with my dad when I was a kid, so I was 12 years old when I started. But I got in the cattle business for several years. I got out of the bees because I just didn't have time to take care of the cattle and the bees both. So I just been back in about 7 years.
Do you have any tactique laying around, JW?
Pet what?
Do you have any of that tactique or bobatraz laying around?
No, I don't.
Tactic.
I do. I've got some.
yeah, you're close, Bob. This is my 9th. This will be my 9th season coming up.
I started
And-
20 years ago.
Todd's got a lot of experience. Todd's got as much.
Well, that's because he's so damn old.
I got about 15 years.
You got
You
15
got how many years?
About,
I
I
took
think it's around 15, I think.
a couple years break.
So
The
Bob and I are the babies.
Yeah.
we're the nurse bees of this group.
Yeah.
The nurse bees. Oh, that's fun.
Well, sometime when we're on private chat, maybe a little more. I won't say this public. I'll tell you about how I compare my age to you guys' age.
All right. Look forward to that.
If I remember correctly,
Well, you can't say that now, Bob.
yeah, I won't say it here, but
Yeah.
you got me by a few years, a couple years, but tons more wisdom. That's
Clay's
for
got
sure.
30 hives, 2 years in May.
Nice.
2 years in May and 30 hives. That's pretty good.
That is
You got it
good.
worked
Off
out
to a
for you.
nice start.
Yeah. That's awesome. Awesome.
Richard, he's been
Second
managing
year
bees since the 70s.
Mm.
I don't know. I got into bees, but I didn't have any, what'd you call it, direction as far as any goals, as far as getting any big. I just wanted to fool with bees as a hobby.
See, I did the Charlie with my bees. I spent 3 years watching videos and learning about bees and stuff like that before I ever got bees. So
you started
my
watching
bees,
videos and stuff about the time I got my bees.
yeah,
About 2015.
yep.
Okay. Okay.
But I was living in a subdivision.
I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything when I got bees. I didn't even know where honey came from.
Really?
Oh,
You just got the bees and put them in the box.
I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything. my wife had studied all winter on bees, and so she
Oh,
told me
that's
what to
right.
do.
She was the
She-
one that got you
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, we got bees, and she said, "Okay, you do this and you do that, and you say, okay, now you got to do that. No, don't do that because this is why." And so she got me through my first year.
Yeah, I don't know. I got to the, for me, there was a lady that came here and my brother was working, or she had these, basically she had top bar beehives. We didn't know what a top bar beehive was. And he redesigned it for her and did some different things. And we made a bunch of them. And then talking with her, she got me interested in it. And I took a couple classes and I went ahead and after the one class, I'm like, you know, whether I would get a hive. So I went ahead and got a nuke and started there. And I had, over those years, I'd gotten up to about 40 some hives, but I found out that was just too much for me. It got to be more like work. And so I backed it up.
That's what I did my first season. So my first season, I ordered 5 nukes from Sam, but we've had in-depth discussions on how Sam makes his nukes and his queen rearing process, right? So very slow process getting my nukes, and he could not produce as many nukes as he had orders for. So I got 1 nuke, and I said, he said, well, I can give you the money back for the other ones. I said, no, I'll just get them in the spring, right? Because I'm over here all the time learning anyway. And so then the barnyard bee effect took off on me. Oh, look, this nuke is exploding. I got a couple swarm calls, right? So I went from 1 nuke and 2 or 3 swarm catches. Then all of a sudden I'm splitting barnyard bees. Oh, you can just take 2 frames of, a frame of broods, bees, and some eggs, and they're going to make you a queen. Next thing I've got 15, and I'm living on cloud 9. I'm like, man, this is really going good this year. Everything's great. And then the hive beetles come. And I was like, holy crap. I ended up overwintering 4 5-frame nukes out of 15 colony. And I mean 15 double deeps, right? And I just got toasted by hive beetles. And so I overwintered 4 5-frame nukes. They all made it through winter. And then I just started growing from there and doing what I can, selling a few nukes, queens, if I can, stuff like that. And here we are. A few years later.
I'd echo Charlie's last sentiment there about, running X number of hives, and that was no fun because it just worked. Some days, boy, I'd like to just scale right back, because sometimes running that many hives by yourself, it is usually just work, right? It's often not go out and have fun with the bees necessarily. And I wish I could sit there for an hour looking for the queen, and that's just not the case. So I look forward to the day that I can scale back to 50 or whatever.
Well, it's not so much, you're looking for the queen or whatever. I get enjoyment out the fact that, I open up the hive and here's a robust hive with plenty of bees and all that. And you happen to see the queen, that's great too. Or in the summertime, you're pulling up some frames and you got all this beautiful cat brood corner to corner and everything's going well.
Yeah.
I get a enjoyment out of that. And then, honey production has, I first started when I got into beekeeping. Who eats honey? And now it's, last year I sold 1,100 pounds. And, and around my area, most of the backyard beekeepers, they get maybe 400 or 500 pounds if they get that. And, I like, I guess it's that entrepreneurial thing. I've been around that so much.
Fun.
You like to be Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah.
Curing everybody.
Yeah, well, Doctor
Yeah, well, I do
over
care a
there,
lot of people.
he,
I have,
he does care a lot of
I
people.
got regular customers in. I prescribe, and
The doctor is it. My comment about looking for the queen, though, I want to qualify that, and that's just kind of my way of putting it. It's not literally, gee, I want to sit and look for the queen for an hour. The point is, I have to come up with so many management processes that save time and energy and steps, right? And if I want to make a split, or if I want to do, maybe rub some frames or some bees or something, so I really need to find the queen and know where she is, and I need to sit down and look for the queen. As it is, I can't do that because there's so much more on my shoulders than that, and I can't take that time. If I had a few hives, I could say, I'm going to sit here until I find that queen, right? But I can't because I have to set it aside. Or what I do often these days is I invite my wife along because she's really good at finding queens, and I can get that stress off of my shoulders and say, "Come over here, dear. Here's a colony. Find my queen." And then she'll just bring a quiet box over with her. She sits down on a super beside the hive, and she'll just sit there and look for. Sometimes it takes her a minute, and sometimes it takes her half an hour. But there's nothing else on her plate, so she can sit there quiet and concentrate on that and find that queen. Whereas I have a hard time doing that. I can't. If I go through the frames once or twice and I don't find the queen, I start to get stressed about that because look at all the other stuff I have to do, and that's really weighing on me at that time. So that's kind of what's behind that comment of sitting there for an hour looking for the queen. It's more of a euphemism than it is anything
I
else.
typically don't. I'm kind of like the first iteration you put out there, where if I find her, great. If I don't find her, also great. If I see there's eggs and brood and larvae, unless there's a queen cell. If I see a queen cell, then I try to find her. But otherwise, I just don't.
Well, and that goes into some really good beekeeping practices, because so often I'll talk to new beekeepers and they'll just be stressed about, I can't find my queen. Is why you want to find a queen? I'll say silly things to them like, well, I didn't see the queen. I can't find the queen. And I'll ask them, why do you need a queen? You don't need a queen in your hive. Well, what do you mean? They'll say, of course I need a queen. I said, you don't need a queen. I said, what you need is something that lays eggs.
Right.
And then they start to get the picture, right? So don't look for the queen, look for the eggs, right? So it's not that you need a queen, you need something that's laying eggs. So look for the eggs. Oh, okay, because if you got eggs,
you got a queen.
Barring the whole laying worker deal that we all know about, you got egg, you got a queen, right? So it's not the queen you need, you need the eggs. So that helps them out there. But yeah, you're right. I use queen excluders a lot to make splits. I'll pull brood above queen excluders, and the bees percolate up through them stuff, and not finding queens, and so all of those techniques used. But I'm digressing because my comment about finding the queen for an hour, that's a euphemism about being able to sit at the hive without all the other stress of the other 149 colonies that I have to work today weighing on my shoulders. So,
well, to answer this question, I did put it in the chat, but because they're linked, I don't know if they can see the chat. So I don't. I try to steer away from that. As far as when I make a actual split. Now, if I'm setting up a queen mating box, I might very well do a 2-frame split. But if I'm just making a split, no. This last year was a eye-opener for me as far as splits. So I guess it's a quality over quantity thing. So here, where I'm at, what I found is when I make a 2-frame split, I'm not saying it doesn't work where you're at. I'm saying I don't get the best results here. So when I make a 2-frame split, she's going to have a small cluster. She's going to have very little ability to lay that frame up because she's only got a certain number of bees to take care of that. So what happens is, in my opinion, the ramp up time for her to build that colony is much slower than if you make a healthy split. Like if you got a colony, what I'll typically do when I'm splitting now is I'll shake all of the bees into the bottom. I will grab those frames of brood, eggs, and larvae that I'm going to be making a split with. I will pull them in another box over a queen excluder and let them split themselves. They'll know how many bees they need to cover those frames. And then the next day, because I've shooken all the bees, is that a word? Since I've shook all the bees down into the bottom, shaken all of the bees down to the bottom box there, I know the queen's not on those frames. I can remove all of those frames because they should be nurse bees. They'll have a nice population in their new nuke. I can add a cell, a queen, or whatever I'm going to do. And then when she gets to land, she's got a population to blow that box up. And then maybe I can add another box. And when they expand into that box, now I can repeat it with a nuke, take the top box off. Now I've got a separate nuke. And
you
it
know
just
what I think, Bob, one of the most beautiful parts of that system is I hear all the time from hobby beekeepers, they stress out about this 2 feet or 2 miles rule, right? When you split bees, you move bees or whatever, right? You want to move bees
I'll put it
50
right
feet
next
in
to
your
them.
apiary, and it's kind of like, oh, you can't do that. Well, the beautiful thing about making a split like that is because exactly what you said, foragers aren't going to come up through that queen excluder to tend the brood. It's nurse bees, right? Guess what nurse bees have never done? They've never been outside. So when you pick that box up and you put it somewhere else in your apiary, you put it wherever you want. You put it there.
Mhm.
And those nurse bees are going to stay in that hive because that's the only thing they know. They've never been outside. So they don't know where they live. They live in that box. And for a new beekeeper, for a hobby beekeeper who doesn't have that out yard, I just say, oh, I'm just going to take it to my out yard. It's 3 miles away, no problem. Well, they don't have the out yard, so they're kind of stressing about that. Well, make that split in that way. Doesn't matter. Put it 10 feet away. You're good.
Well, I did that. That was my basic swarm prevention in the spring, right? So when you're taking, let's say you have 2 boxes, they're going to be in one or the other. If you're putting them down on the bottom and now you're taking that top with empty drawn comb and you're putting that in the bottom with the queen, well, now she's got a ton of room to lay. When you take all that cap brood and open brood up to the top, now all she can do is go to town, work in that bottom box, which is going to keep some bees down there with her. And it's just going to
put empty drawn comb down there, and she is on that right away. Bob, Doug has a comment back a few minutes. Can you bring that up? He says I think people find it easy. Yeah. I think people find it easy to expand the bees, but unless you expand the handling system ahead of time is real work. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And, I ran into that this year. I got myself into trouble because my queen rearing went really well. I had a good stock of zombie hives that was really feeding my nuke production. And I got over 100 nukes going there over on the side. I was all happy about that. And then it came time to feed and treat the whole bunch. And I realized, oh dear, I've, maybe taken on too much. And it was not only that, but I was doing too much work. I was transferring nukes from this, a 4-framer to a 5 and a 5 to a 6 and a 6 to a 10. I was doing way too many transfers, working way too hard. So I think Doug has got a really good point there that you can grow bees sometimes faster than you can grow your ability to actually work them in a reasonable fashion without wearing yourself out. Then it's no fun anymore, right? It's just work.
Ian said the temp got up to 4C today and 8 in the shed.
Wow. I don't know what my shed got to today.
The
Look,
where Brian put 2 broods in a food. Yep, that's kind of. I mean, but if you think about it, that's pretty much what a nuke is, right? 2 broods in a food and like an open larva, and or 3 frames of brood, 2 frames of food, or a food and an empty foundation, something like that.
wow. My shed was holding at 4 today. The temperature went to 4C, and the shed held at 4, which is not really encouraging because if there's no live bees in there, it's going to be easy to cool.
Well, you're more north than Ian. It's colder up there.
Yeah, that's it.
Positive
That'll help me
thoughts.
sleep, Charlie.
Positive thoughts.
That'll help me sleep tonight.
Well, now you're talking about going from 4 to 6 to 6 to 10 frame boxes. So,
Yeah.
what did you learn to do? Did you were saying to just throw everything in a 6 framer, cut out the 4s?
I'm going to have to do more of that. Get them into the box they're going to stay in. It really depends on when I make that split too. Splits I make early in May are going to have to go into 10 frame equipment. They're not going to stay in whatever I make them in. So they're going to have to be transferred because I can't make them into 10s. But when it comes to late May, early June and on, I can probably make those straight into 6 framers because the weather is warm enough that they'll be okay in a larger box that way. And that'll prevent me from having to transfer those again because they'll winter in those boxes. So just that kind of thing. It was,
But they'll, as far as the volume of bees versus the size of the box and all that, basically it's like when you have a package of bees here, most people put it in a 10 frame box. I recommend put it in a 5 frame and grow that box up to a 10 frame and transfer. But
yeah, I think that's good advice. To me, where I work, it has a bit to do with the weather too. That the whole idea of keeping them in the appropriately sized box is more important when the temperatures are cooler.
colder.
Once
No,
it
I
gets-
guess what I'm
once
saying
we
is
get
I
into July,
give the
it's
the
not as
new
important.
beekeeper that advice. The new beekeeper,
Absolutely.
it works
Absolutely.
better. It's better for the bees and better for the new beekeeper, and it helps them learn. Actually, the bees will grow up into the next 5 frames and
You need
throw
you
all
need
that wax out. And
principles when you're new. You need some more rigid principles
Mhm.
than when you start to see some of the other things that affect that. One thing I remember Ian giving me crap for early on was
Ian would never do that.
Oh, he would wag his finger at me, and he would, if I'd put a frame of drawn comb in the middle of the brood nest, I'd open that brood nest up and slide some drawn comb in the center of it, and he would look at me sideways. And that's a maneuver, boy. You got to be careful. You better have nice strong colony and some nice warm weather, because you do that at the wrong time, that's not a good thing. So it's not something a new beekeeper should be playing with. Don't split the brood nest. Once you get some experience and you've tried it under the right circumstances, you can do it, and it's very helpful. But just be careful.
I've made that mistake too. When I had drawn comb, which is not always the case, right?
Yeah, that's something that we don't talk about much either, is it? That especially new beekeepers, if you haven't been keeping bees for at least 3 years, you're probably still in a drawn comb deficit, right? And
You
that's
haven't had
one of
enough colonies die to have a plethora of comb left over.
you just have a bunch of colonies die, you're going to have some comb left. I know that for sure.
Sourwood there's talking about having a follower board. Yeah, you can do that too. That works
Follower
also.
boards work good. Yeah. So yeah, that's just it, and to have a supply of drawn comb. When I started out, I did a whole bunch of different things, and one of the things I did, I bought I bought some nukes from a guy. I think I bought 10 from this guy. And I also bought, how many boxes did I buy? I think I bought 30 boxes of drawn comb. And this drawn comb was nasty. It was moth ridden. It was nasty, but it was drawn comb. And yeah, the bees cleaned it up. It was all good. The frames were garbage. They had nail ears, and the boxes were junk. But it got me through. It got me through. It wasn't diseased, and it got me through with the need for drawn comb, because honey supers, you don't need drawn comb. Don't fall for the whole 8 pounds of honey to make, but brood chamber, drawn comb. You need drawn comb in there.
It's probably wagging the
I think I
bottle
could-
of cracking at him.
I could see you wagging your finger on the other end of the computer screen, I think. No, that's okay. I don't mind being cautioned by the experienced people.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just little stuff
Yeah.
like that you don't know when you first start, right? And
Yeah.
oddly enough, when you're talking with someone, sometimes it's hard to get those little nuances out of them, right? Like an example, in that situation, my mentor is a nuke producer, right? So that would not be something that would enter into his mind for me when I'm making splits, right? Because he's making smaller splits and he's not putting comb in the middle of them. Whereas me using 10 frame colonies, that would be something that would be in my purview. So, but if you directly ask somebody, they may or may not even give you that answer. So, I mean, that's, or you may not even think to ask that. You might just be doing it and not know, right?
I've seen it so many times, and it happened to me. New beekeeper, you get your bees, you go through your first summer, you winter your bees, and hopefully your bees winter well, and they often do. You come into your first spring, you're all happy, you got your bees and they're coming out in the spring, and you think this year is going to be like last. Well, guess what? It ain't going to be like last. It's going to be Bee-mageddon is what it's going to be, because now that's an overwintered queen, and guess what she wants to do? She wants to make babies and baby colonies, and that's called swarming. And one of the things that can help mitigate swarming is the proper use of drawn comb. And you don't have any drawn comb because it's your first year. So I think I've seen it so many times. A new beekeeper comes into their first spring and the bees build up and they swarm and they say, "What am I going to do?" And I say, "Well, put some drawn comb on it." I don't have any drawn comb. Well, I don't have to tell you.
It took me 5 years. The first time I ever heard that was this year, 2023, when I think you were the one that said, and I know James regurgitated it to me, but one of you two said, foundation is not space.
That's my mantra. Yeah, give them space. We always hear, give them space. Foundation is not space. Comb is space.
Foundation, it might as well be a when it's that time of the year, it might as well be a follower board, because you're basically just dividing that outside from wherever you put that.
It is physical space, and that can help a little bit, but the space they need is space to lay, space to put that initial little nectar flow, that initial little pollen flow that they have, that they're plugging out the hive. And now she can't lay, so she figures, well, if I can't lay here, I might as well lay somewhere else. Let's go.
Right.
That's what I mean by space. Comb is space. That's the space they need.
Well, that's one of the reasons that I went from to a lot of 5 frame stuff, because I would have more. I was short on drawn comb, and I could fill up a 5-frame box to get them started with, and have with drawing comb, and where I couldn't with the 10. And actually, I've only got 4 10-frames left because I'm reducing. I'm going to all 8-frame stuff. But I still have a shortage of drawn comb. I'm gonna work on trying to get some more foundation drawn out this year.
Are you selling bees? Is that why you're?
No, not necessarily. I'm just doing it for a hobby. Heck, I give all my honey away. I give 600 pounds of honey away this year, and I left most of it, on the hives. And
Wow.
so I'm in it for the profit, you can tell. But I'm just a hobbyist. I'm just doing it to finish off my days and have something to do. I can't sit around the house. So.
I hear you.
I really enjoy it.
Let me see. Just trying to catch up on some of these comments here. So Ian said that he was listening to Randy. Let me post this up.
Yeah, that's something else I heard him say.
That might be the cause of our last couple of years' losses, but he didn't name it.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of little nuggets of information in that video.
It's just, that to me is, I think, one of the beauties of our format, back to that whole thing, is that there's a link. Anybody in this chat of 66 right now could click on it. Now, there's a couple requirements. One of the requirements is please don't have an echo, which is easy to fix once you figure it out, right? And try not to have too much ambiance in your background, and because it makes it hard to hear what's being said. And, and talk. It's a chat, unlike Todd over there, asleep at the wheel.
I'm not asleep. I'm on the phone. I'm texting.
Oh, you're not dead either, eh?
No. I'll off the ambulance.
Hey, Robert.
But we try to have a good time and have fun, and just try to talk as much as we can about bees and situations here, and invite everybody to join with us. So we do appreciate everybody's participation. Doug says, if you get a swarm, give them foundation and they'll draw it out fast. Also, that box that you put on top of a nuke, if you're got a nuke and you're trying to go like Charlie does, stovepipe them, 2 or 3 boxes high. If you give them foundation, they'll draw that quick too, won't they, Charlie? Going up.
That's the thing. I didn't invent that. That was Michael Palmer. It's all beekeeping's about one thing: manipulation of the bees. Get them to do what you want them to do. And if you got a 3-pound package, put that 3-pound package in a 5-frame nuke, and you just manipulated them to focus on just 5 frames, and all the bees in that package have to do the same thing and focus, and give them some sure water to help them, stimulate them to draw wax, and they'll draw it right out. And then they'll get the laying in there, and don't put another box on top real quick and get that population to really be packed out. And then throw another box on top of that. Maybe draw a frame of brood up in there to give them a little more of a
well, let me bring this up if I may. If any of you fellas tried any of the Better Comb from Better Bee?
No.
I was short on foundation this year, or drawing out stuff, and I got some of it. And frankly, I didn't have very good luck with it. That's the reason I'm asking. So.
You didn't have good luck with it?
No, sir, I didn't.
Well, a few years ago when it first came out, I saw a guy that was, he doesn't even do YouTube anymore. It was Backyard Bees NC. And he bought some of that to get his colony started when he was starting to keep bees. And when it got hot down here, that stuff started sagging right in the colony. It was just like melting in the colony. And so he swore it off. And I was like, well, I'm south of him, so it's probably going to be hotter for me. So I didn't get it. But supposedly they've done some things to fix that. And I don't know if it's embedding wire in it or what they've done because I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, it's got wire in it. I've got some. I had some 100-degree temperature this year. I didn't have any trouble with the sagnet. I just had trouble with the bees, taking advantage of it. They was drawing that comb with off a straight foundation. Trying to draw it out was right beside the better bee comb. So I'm not trying to knock it. I'm just telling you my experience.
Well, I've got a. Everybody raves about Premier Foundation, but I've got a colony that I put last year. What is now Nobby Hive Life when it was Hive Life, they gave us all at the door one Premier frame and foundation, yes. And I put that in a colony, and the only frame they did not work on was that one. So I don't know if James said he had an issue with some foundation he had got from him a couple years ago, and that they fixed that. So I don't know if that was like leftover from that.
What foundation was that, Bob?
That Premier Foundation.
Oh, okay.
The one that everybody raves and rants and is
well, they got about 3 or 4 different show models. They got a Model A, and then they got a mid-size Ford, then they got a Cadillac model. They got different types.
I haven't had any problems with it, but I did stop buying the triple wax, and I'm using my own wax.
Yeah.
So
that's me.
That's another thing for the guys out there 1 or 2 years in. You save your wax and then melt it down and take a little foam roller and roll over it and put some wax on there. That will
absolutely a nice waxed frame is nearly as good as drawn comb.
Yeah,
because they'll draw that. See, I've noticed that they won't draw comb if they're not on a flow, or like Charlie was saying, you feed them thin syrup. But if you wax that frame, they'll draw that because they've got the wax there. They'll pull it out right away to the extent of the wax that's available.
The other thing, and I've mentioned it before, Bob Benny had a video out, I think it was a couple years ago now, where he went through the different syrup recipes, and the one I tried it in August when really nothing was going on, and it was a 1 to 3 recipe, not a 3 to 1, not 3 parts sugar, 1 part water. It was 1 part water, or now I'm getting confused. But it was a 1 to 3 recipe where it encouraged the bees to draw out comb, and they drew out, this one colony drew out like 3 boxes for me. So I was like very, not only shocked, but happy. I haven't tried it since, but I just tried it. But 1 to 3 does work. It's a real thin syrup. It's 1 part.
I did that last year too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it mimics nectar, I guess, and they'll just take off with it.
Ultra thin.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie took off.
Wow,
Charlie
pushed the wrong button. Charlie.
Switch sides.
There you go.
We switched sides. Charlie and I did.
I was trying to talk to chat with William.
I want to add a little depth to something Charlie said a few minutes ago, and I don't disagree with Charlie at all in what he said. However, I just want to add a little bit of different dimension to it. And what Charlie said was beekeeping is mostly about getting the bees to do what you want them to do. I would say that in the way that beekeeping is about learning what the bees do and learning what the bees want to do and capitalizing on that. Because purely speaking, you're not going to force the bees to do anything they don't want to do. right? If you want to take your bees in my climate, if I want to take my bees in February and cause them to swarm, guess how successful I'm going to be. Guess how successful I'm going to be to get them to draw comb in January, right? I mean, these are absurd things, but this is what I'm saying. There's always a season for everything, and so, you know, when I want to raise queens. I want to do that in the peak season. I can't force the bees to make superior queens in April in my climate. I have to wait till June, July to make the best queens. And that has to do with the bees. So I have to figure out what they want to do, what they're capable of doing, what they're driven to do, and what they want to do. And I have to make the best of that, do what I can to just enhance that the best I can. And comb drawing is no exception.
You could always bring them down here. Then you could make them swarm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Load
that
'em
wouldn't
up.
be an administrative nightmare at all.
Well, they might not be a problem getting them out of the country. You just wouldn't be able to get them back because you couldn't prove they were Canadian bees.
Well, it's closed both ways. Don't worry.
Well, guys, it is coming up on midnight. This is actually a
Wow.
yeah. We were just hanging out. I'm like, we'll go live for a few minutes, and here we are, 2 hours in, and 70 viewers in. So we definitely
thanks,
appreciate the super chats and support that everybody gives us on a.
Absolutely.
Guess I would say semi-weekly, right? Or I don't know. Sometimes it's semi-daily, and sometimes it's every day. We just appreciate everything you guys do for us. And
Yeah, of course.
if Crystal Ray is watching, I packed you up while we were sitting here, and I'll get that out in the mail for you in the morning. So she'll be the brand new owner of a set of Competitive Advantage marking pens. Also, here's something that you guys may or may not understand is that I have a standing discount for viewers of the stream on my website. When you go to check out, if you use the code STREAM10, you'll get a 10% discount. So
Nice.
just something to keep in mind. So at any rate, guys.
You do a stream 20 too?
Oh, Dave.
No.
Thanks, Dave. Snuck in a super sticker. That's awesome.
I like how
Thanks,
you make
Dave.
more money on my stream than I do.
Much appreciated. I'm just a leech. I'm just a leech.
No, it is not Stream Team 10. It's just Stream 10.
Stream 50.
Goodness.
Didn't
Robert. Okay, Robert's out of here.
Stream 50.
All right, you're banned. Now, if you weren't blocked before, Robert, you're blocked now. Just kidding.
Yeah. Nice knowing you.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to end the live stream tonight because, Charlie's got to go to work in the morning. I got to go to work in the morning. Todd's got, it's like 8 o'clock. No, 9 o'clock Todd's time. Holy crap. He's past his bedtime.
Yeah,
It's getting
it's
close.
bedtime.
Getting
Definitely.
close to the bewitching hour.
And we will be live tomorrow on either mine or Lee's channel. It was supposed to be Lee's last week, but it was his girl's birthday, his wife's birthday. So I did the live stream on my stream. So I don't know if we're flip-flopping back or what. So it'll be on one of our two channels tomorrow, either mine or Kodiak Farm Bees at 8 o'clock. So, which is actually now today because it's 12:01 here. So appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next stream. Thanks for participation.
Good night, everybody.
See ya.
Good night.
No.
Have a good one.